Hello and welcome to Gierok Farms. In today's video we're going to be talking about the calves here on the farm. We got a pretty unique group of calves, a lot of different genetics within this group of calves, and they're all doing really well. They're really healthy and they're growing fast. So we figured this morning as we were feeding calves we'd take you guys along with us and talk a little bit about the different lineup of genetics we have. This is going to be a good looking group of cattle once they get into the dairy barn and into the dairy herd.
Very colorful. What we got here, this is Shorthorn, and her mother probably had Shorthorn in her too, so you get more of a reddish color. This here is Shorthorn too, a little bit of that blue roan. That's actually a steer that we kept. It was born awful small, out of I think this came out of that big chocolate cow you were talking about this morning.
His mom is a really good looking dairy cow.
I think I'd have to look back again, but I know the mother for this was one of the larger cows, which is kind of crazy how big cow gives a little big calf, little cow gives a big calf. This is all pretty much Holstein here, and this is again there's Shorthorn and her, just like that. I believe there's some Shorthorn in that too. And we're getting some interesting cattle because it's several generations back now. Even though the mother may look like Holstein or more blue roan, pretty soon we start getting stuff like that. Because then I'll put Shorthorn back in the blue roans again. I try to mix it up, and there's some Jersey too. I know we got a few down in the calf barn, a little Jersey.
So we have 6 up here next to the dairy barn, in the super hut we call it, and then we'll take you over to where we started off this morning in our maternity pen. We have 2 calves down there. It's a pretty full house. Your breeding program that must have had a lot of
color in this the last bunch of heifer calves and stuff. Yeah, there was some bull calves too that we sold. That the last one there was I think some Shorthorn in it. They bring a little more because they'll fatten better on less grain and it'll grow faster and all that stuff. So they usually pay a little better.
Which is timing out really great right now because the cattle price is still high. It's been high for over a year now, and it really hasn't dipped down too much, even with winter here now. So
no, if you ever had to buy any beef or steak or something, it's just through the roof, which is kind of crazy because really they're not paying us what they're getting for it in the restaurants and all that. Yep. It seems like they're passing it on to the consumer. And to be in the cattle business right now, if you can breed and get your own calves, but if you got to buy the calves, yeah, you're kind of on buying them high. To
a lot of overhead there.
Yeah,
a lot of risk.
It's $300 to $400 for a week-old calf, and sometimes just a plain Jane Holstein, which isn't. We've never seen prices like that ever. If we got $250 or something, that would have been the highest we'd ever seen, and maybe for 1 week or something. Usually, right when the grass gets green. And what happens, I think, is all your hobbyists and stuff come out and decide they want to raise a few calves.
Calves on the side. And,
yeah, so you get more competition, and a lot of the big buyers that normally buy them, the smart ones learn to back off when that happens and just wait till the price, till the demand isn't there. Yeah. Now it's all over. It's good. Cattle industry's strong.
Yeah, so let's head over to the maternity pen and get a look at what we got over in the calf barn.
That's what they call blue roan, and it's what it is the hair is kind of mixed, like the black and the white is almost mixed. So it gives it almost from a distance more of a bluish tone. And now being they're confined, their hair is longer, they don't quite have as nice of a shine and a clean, but they sure are healthy. And when the weather gets cold like this, everything gets dry. We're pretty much just adding bedding to the bedding pack just to give them some kind of cushion and warmth to lay in. I'll take this cold weather for a majority of the winter. It shouldn't really warm up. I hope it don't get too far above freezing anytime soon.
Makes a big difference when it comes to cleanliness, if it's below 32 degrees consistently or not.
So here we have the maternity pen, and I've been just rebedding it over the top, but everything is kind of frozen. We got our small vacuum pump up here, and that's actually something that my dad used to use where I grew up. Everybody had those type. They'd maybe milk at 4 or 5 buckets with those things, but I kind of rigged that up in here. It isn't quite as nice. I'd like to have it, but it's because of cold start. We have to loosen the belt to get the motor to run, and then I have a way of getting it tightened up and speed wrench down the motor, and it make it work.
It's the job done.
It's the job done, and the nice thing is you get a fresh cow like this cow. When she had her calf, the next day she ended up with milk fever. It's better here where she can kind of lay out and instead of stuck in some stall or some slippery area.
Plenty of room to stretch out. And...
well, to recover from that. And she's already had 5 calves. The darker one is hers, I believe.
And for those of you that don't know, milk fever is essentially a calcium deficiency.
It's an imbalance, and it's typically you'll never see it in a first calf. It'll always be usually in an older cow if it is. It kind of goes in streaks. I haven't seen it for years, and then all of a sudden, and I think it has a lot to do with the growing season, what's in your feed from year to year, and then your vitamins and minerals. We did switch companies here, and you always never really know for sure. Generally, it leans on older cows.
Yeah, not to get off track, but if you want to learn more about that, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll talk more about that in the video. But
so anyway, yeah.
We got 2 calves down here in the maternity pen.
And these guys, I've jacketed up. The bull calf was down here too. I had 2 cows in here when it got really cold. They had them right before that cold, when that last snow was, and then I just left her down to feed these calves. And then I'll milk her here on the side, and then I'll feed my other calves or whatever. So she's right now feeding 5 calves between these 2 and the bucket, which is fairly impressive. So, but I think now that it's starting to warm up a little bit again, we're gonna get some guys up there, move down into this barn, and these guys are gonna be up in the super hot, get them started on a bottle and get them drinking out of a pail.
Yeah, what we're trying to say is there'll be some graduates pretty soon. They'll be moving up to elementary school instead of preschool here pretty soon.
I mean, to me, I kind of look at a time thing. So if I got to come down to whether it's a super hut or here with a couple bottles and be feeding these calves, the time it takes to do that, I could just milk that cow. They're already fed by her. They do way better. And then I got milk to go feed my other calves along with a little rinse. And for the larger ones, and I think the main thing is if we can stay away from any type of illness or keep their immunity strong, and that's huge. I don't think we even realize the immunities in the animals, including us. It's not that they'll never get sick, it's just they'll get over it.
Speaking of keeping calves healthy, I know one of these guys are going to ask, and I don't blame them, why do some of the calves have jackets on, or little blankets essentially, and some of them don't? What's going on?
So I have 7 of them, and it's all timing of when they're born, how large the calf is, because usually when the barometric pressure drops and you got cows or heifers ready to pop, that's going to encourage them to calve that day sooner. And then after a storm goes through, the temperature drops. I started using these jackets maybe 20 years ago. When I was a kid, we never even knew there was such thing, and I love it. And it will help them gain better. I mean, obviously they're not, because they don't need as much energy to stay warm, so then they can just grow instead of just maintain. The littlest calves, so I got 7 of those, and I've had times when it's been so darn cold, you hate to take it off an older one that's been used to having it on when it's still below 0 every night, and then give it to a younger one, but sometimes you just gotta make the switch, you know.
And that's another nice thing to mention. Having the heated shop has really, improved some of the cattle health on them really, really cold days. So you can get a calf in there and keep them warm.
So if we had like where it was going to get 10 to 15 below that night and she's calving, let's say even an older mom like this, so then that's fine. I get her calved. That's after chores in the evening. It's going to get real cold. She's licking her calf. We'll get some milk out of her, get the calf fed, and maybe within a half hour we'll take that wet calf to the shop. And then we make like a makeshift pen between the machinery with a bag of shavings. Usually I mix it with a bag of lime because the shop floor is a little slippery. Anyway, yeah, and then it's 50 degrees in there. It's dry. Sometimes it's a day, maybe 2. Once the calf is up and a little more vigorous, we get it back. What we don't want to do is get it so used to that. You don't want to keep it there for a whole week.
Just want to give it a good head start.
Right. And so you don't just bring it out in sub-zero weather, cold turkey, and this way then you get a jacket on her or whatever. And then a lot of times, like in here where we're feeding out the hay, and this is the sun side of this barn, we'll put like a little piece of panel in here. This is ideal place for something that's newly born, that's when the weather's very wintry.
Yeah, a lot of insulation between the hay pile and then the hay on the ground, and then we have the window panels here
that let that light and that sun helps. And it's really about draft free, no drafts and dry. Yeah. I mean, it's like ourselves. If your feet are wet or your fingers are wet, it don't matter. If you got a lot of clothes on, you get cold. So it's really just, you kind of learn those things. So then when the weather breaks and it kind of straightens up, then we'll move some stuff around a little bit. Then sometimes you got to change a routine according to the weather. So then our super hut now, in the next few days, we're gonna make some room in here. We're gonna shuffle everybody in, graduate into the bigger pens, and the 2 larger ones up there are going to come down here, and these guys will be able to go up there, and then I have this pen ready for whatever maybe calving in the future. So you always got to kind of be thinking ahead of what you're going to do, and watching the weather of what kind of systems are coming in, to how you're going to adjust. Usually want to either adjust before or after. You don't want to do it during if you can avoid it.
Keep it consistent. And before I forget, in the comments down below, those of you that do have calves, let us know what type of facilities you have for winter and what type of calf jackets you run. I'd be interested to know what, you know, what brands people like, especially.
So the calf jackets, the key is, and I know when I started buying them, you know, the guy, I was always thinking, well, how do you think they're going to hold up? You know, it's going to be falling apart in 2 years. They were like $35 in. I haven't bought one in forever, because we'll wash them in our barn clothes wash machine in the spring. And then the last thing you want to do is just throw them on a pile someplace in your barn, or, you know, because the mice will move into that stuff and shred them up. Well, I've been very careful about that, where I get them folded up, put away in a cupboard where they can stay decent, and then they're ready to go. So then, like now, when they start getting larger, and I'll say, okay, these 2 don't need a jacket anymore. It's getting tight on them. We'll take it off, have a couple jackets ready for some new calves, and I'll just leave them up in the super hut up on top of the tarp up there just for the winter. They're taking care of stuff. It's because to buy all that stuff again, nothing's getting any cheaper, and they should last forever if we take care of them.
Yep. So let's move down into the calf barn, push up the feed, and show you some of the genetics we got going on down there with some of the younger, or the older young stock.
Hear that? And nothing but them crunching on hay. Sometimes in the night you'd shut the lights off in here. That's all you can hear is munching. Hay stems getting crunched. That is the healthiest thing you can feed your cattle, is this dry hay. They usually in this cold weather need some grain with it for energy, but
Almost like an ASMR video, just a video of sound. That'd be kind of cool.
I think a farmer a cattleman, it's kind of like listening to your kids sleep. You know, it's just content stuff. You know, it's like, things are good. And when you I always tell these boys as they were growing up, when you go down here and push up hay, you look, make sure that all their heads are in here and they're all eating. Like for instance, see the one there? Maybe there's nothing wrong with her, but you always observe. You think, well, is that one not feeling right, or is there something, or is it just filled up?
Yeah, especially if you came down here in a couple hours and she's still kind of moping around, then it'd be something to look into.
I mean, she appears to be fine, usually the eyes and things, but that's always something. So when you come down to push up feed, and it's been a while, they should generally all be pretty interested. Now, they were all just gobbling grain down a little bit ago, so like you said, we would come down and give it a second thought. But that's always one rule I've always done. A lot of times, stand up on the curb, overlook the whole bunch. Same with the big barns. Don't just come, push up, feed, and leave. Because typically, if you see something that don't look quite right, if you can address it real soon, whether it's pneumonia or something, usually you can get really good results with less treatment or no treatment, maybe they just, if I've had it. I remember one time, it's kind of always a bizarre thing. These bizarre things happen. I had a calf stuck underneath the gate. I don't know, they're just laying there and kind of sprawl out like they do sometimes, and then it got caught, and it couldn't get itself out from under the gate. And it was in the evening late, and I don't know why, I just said, well, I'm going to go check the calf barn before I go in. And sure enough, and by morning, that would have been a mess. So, just a matter of opening the gate, letting it get up, and it was already kind of pooped out from struggling, but the calf was okay. But things are going to happen, but if you can prevent those things because you're observant to the cattle. So
as a livestock farmer, you're essentially a babysitter.
Exactly. You feel responsible for anything that goes wrong. It's your fault. It's just something you feel you failed. And I don't mind the work. I don't mind spending 24/7 with these cattle, just like your kids. You got results, and you can look at them and say, hey, everything's doing good. You don't feel the work, you just feel the success of it all.
Speaking of genetics down here, you definitely got some shades of red.
There's a shorthorn again in there, and now we've actually only got one that came in reddish brown color to it. That's really got the true shorthorn look. So I think we've been using this stuff long enough that we're starting to get more of that. Now, like here, again, you look on her back leg, she's got some speckles there too. Now there might be some shorthorn. I have to really look back. But anytime you see, it's usually below the knees or the bottom part of the foot. If there's any black in there near the hoof, that's a sign of there's something other than Holstein in that animal.
Yeah, like here's a good comparison, these two together.
She's probably more pure Holstein
on the left there, and then on the right, that's that mix.
Yeah, and it'll always, even though the rest of the body looks like a Holstein, they'll know that something's mixed in there when they're buying calves, or if you're looking at heifers or something. Not a bad thing. It just tells you if you're buying calves for feeders, and you'd want that. That's a sign of it's a cross. It's usually not so much. May not be a milking animal, it'll be more of a meat animal.
And then these two over here, you're familiar with them. It's our brown Swiss twins. If you pay attention to the channel, we got the one hiding back there and the other one eating up here.
See, now these guys I was just looking at the other day, the smaller one is a little bit lighter. And what happens when they're born, they're almost whitish looking more, like kind of this color more. As they get older, they'll start to get darker. And you can already see that one's going to be a darker brown than this one. One must take after the other side of the family or whatever the case. But.
Yeah, they're definitely not identical twins. There's a noticeable difference between the two. That one has speckles kind of by its back hip, and with the other one, it's got less of that.
Yeah, I noticed that. I don't know if that's typical in the Swiss. There's just a little bit there. So if there's something from way back, but she's got a little bit in there, yeah. Which I'm kind of excited to see how they do. It's just kind of a neat thing to see how they are as they grow up, if they hang out together more when they're out in the pasture, if they still kind of, being that they were nurse and mother together and everything, but they're definitely fat. They're kind of outdoing the other stuff that way. So, I mean, twins are always a tough thing. When you have a set of twins born, first thing you think is which one's going to get sick on you first, and to get them to take off and to start gaining weight, because them first few weeks are very tricky when it comes to an animal like that. You usually would hope for a single. I mean, I've known, I think a lot of it has to do with fertility of the animals. When their nourishment is really good, the fertility is higher. They'll maybe drop 2 eggs and have twins, and some of it could be hereditary. I mean, but you'd prefer to have one healthy one over 2 if you had a choice.
Oh, for sure.
It's always good to get 2 for 1, but it puts such a strain on the mom and the calves that you may lose one. I've had it where I pulled a calf and it was dead, and I'm like, what happened here? What's going on with this? A little bit small, I didn't think too much of it. You went off to do some other stuff and come back and check on her. There's another set of feet hanging out. And you pull that out and you got a live calf. And then you realize why the one didn't make it. Because typically twins during birthing, that one might rip the cord off or something like that, and it's always risky. But
yeah, higher percentage of risk, that's for sure. Well, we are going to end off the video there. Thank you for sticking to the end. It was nice to have a bit more of a cattle-oriented video. It was fun to go over some of the genetics with you. It's awesome to see that we have a really diverse herd, and it'll be cool to see what the dairy barn looks like in a couple of years from now. Make sure to leave plenty of comments down below. Let us know about those calf jackets and some of the genetics that you've seen in dairy herds. Also, check us out at GierokFarms.com. Subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. We'd really appreciate it. Thank you all for watching, and we will see you next time.